Welcome to our Teen and Parent webinar series, where we explore one of the most important journeys families face together: understanding the teen brain, the risks of addiction, and the power of healthy communication. Adolescence is a time of rapid growth and change, physically, emotionally, and neurologically, and these changes can sometimes make it hard for parents and teens to connect. In this series, we'll break down the science of the developing brain, discuss how substance use impacts decision-making and long-term health, and provide practical tools for strengthening communication and building resilience at home. Today, we have Dr. Donald Reed from the McDowell County Hope Coalition and Mr. Cliff Adkins from Clear Story Counseling.
Good morning. This is Donald Reed with the McDowell County Hope Coalition. Joining us is Mr. Brock Jackson and Mr. Cliff Adkins from Clear Story Counseling. Our topic for today's webinar is living with ADHD. Living with ADHD is often misunderstood. For many of us, it isn't simply being distracted or hyperactive. It's about navigating a world that wasn't designed for how our brains work. For the parents or grandparents listening, maybe your child or grandchild has a diagnosis and you're not actually sure what those acronyms mean or how you interact. If you're the teenager listening, maybe you feel often misunderstood. ADHD can shape how we think, feel, organize, regulate our emotions, and relate to others. It can bring out creativity, passion, and deep empathy. But it can also come at a cost of exhaustion, self-doubt, and years of feeling behind or misunderstood. Today's conversation is about moving beyond stereotypes, labels, and talking honestly about what it's like living with ADHD and how counseling can help individuals not just cope, but thrive.
Alrighty, Cliff, you ready to kick this
Yeah.
off?
Yeah, let's
Let's
go.
let's do this. All right, so with the first question, it's kind of more of a clinical perspective, but how do you explain ADHD to clients who feel shame or frustration about their diagnosis?
If the if when they're diagnosed with ADHD, if I see any sort of shame or sadness, and of course you have to process sometimes because it'll usually when people receive a diagnosis, a lot of things become clear and they make sense. But I always explain to them that ADHD is an explanation. You can now learn your symptoms. You know your symptoms, and we can begin working on those symptoms. So rather than look at it as like, oh my gosh, I have all these things. Like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to overcome this? It's like, yes, you have all these things. So let's start addressing these things to where you can manage them and thrive. Even though you have these symptoms. So I always steer away from shame and more into just this is just an explanation. It's not deeper than that. It's an explanation of what's going on, and there's no sense to attach it to your character or to your identity. It's just an explanation of your symptoms.
Brock, you are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so what are some emotional or relational challenges people with ADHD experience that often go unrecognized?
Usually they are heightened sensitivity because you have to think your mind is going 100 miles an hour in whatever direction it's like it's aimed. And so there is a heightened sensitivity to rejection, towards emotional dysregulation. There's just a heightened sensitivity with all of that because their mind is going so fast and they're computing things so fast that there's this sensitivity towards it, and there's a lot of they have to overcome sometimes a lot of guilt and shame because when your mind is going very fast, typically what will happen is as a child you interrupt. That doesn't change, unfortunately. Like people with ADHD will interrupt all the time, and that seems rude. Like, and it seems like they just think what they have to say is more important than what you're saying, and that's not the case. It's that the brain is going a million miles an hour, and so those words will just as they're talking, and they don't mean to interrupt, so they're not being rude. But that is a very common, when you interrupt someone, that's rude. And so as a child, you're doing that in class, you're talking a lot, you can't sit still, you struggle staying on task, so maybe you're fidgeting in your desk. Well, then the teacher starts calling you down. And so here's a kid who's not making bad decisions because they're not being mean, they're not trying to break the rules. Their brain is just going a million miles an hour inside of a little tiny desk. But there are other kids in class that do want to break the rules. They are trying to be mean. They're trying to disobey the teacher. That is the goal. The teacher's response to both of those kids is almost the same. So this good kid who's not meaning to interrupt, he's not meaning to disrupt class, he's not meaning to break the rules, but he's doing all of those things, starts to be labeled as like an annoyance. Like, and the teachers treat them that way. And so they begin that seeps in like, oh gosh, I annoy people. I know they'll start saying things like, I'm too much. People can't handle me. Even though they're a great person and they don't want to break the rules and they're loving and caring, but they start to hear this stuff from teachers and from friends. And so, it's like the kids when you're like, the teacher says, go and line up against the wall. The ADHD kid is going to run a million miles an hour towards that line and probably like a bowling ball to bowling pins, slam into all these other kids. Doesn't mean he's not wrestling. He's not trying to hurt anybody. But all those other kids are going to get annoyed. They're going to be like, God, get off of me. Like, what do you like? And the teacher's going to yell at him, quit. I just said go get in line. And the kid never meant anything by it. And so these experiences start to pile up. And so over time as an adult, you start to feel like you feel guilt and shame. And so you're so aware of how you come off to people, or you're at least constantly looking for that because you're like, I've never meant to be rude, but people have called me rude. I've never, people call me lazy, but I'm not really lazy because when I'm into something, I crush it, like I kill it. I'm amazing at it. So I don't think I'm lazy, but everybody calls me lazy. And there's all these misunderstandings, and they'll forget things. Like if you send a person with ADHD a text, you should send them one text at a time. If you send them two and three texts, one of your texts will get overlooked. And then you're like, well, they must be maybe, if your first text was like, I hope you're not mad at me, and then like you'll say something else and you'll say something else, they'll respond to like text three or two, but they'll miss that, I hope you're not mad at me. So they won't even address that. And you're like, oh my gosh, they're mad at me. They're mad at me because they didn't say anything about, no, they're reading that so fast and trying to respond to you so quickly that they forget. And so they don't mean anything by it, but people perceive it that way. And so, or they won't text you back at all because they're like, I have to give them a very good response. I have to give them a thoughtful response because they matter to me. And then they forget. And then you never respond. And so that person is like, God, they're not even thinking about me. They don't even care. And it's like, no, they care very much. They're actually in their head, they're like, I need to sit down and send you this, but they never will. And so all of that is happening just all the time inside their brain. So there's so many emotional ups and downs with that and relational challenges that come with that.
So this is kind of a comparison here. So how does ADHD present differently in adults compared to children, and especially for those who are diagnosed later in their life?
That's a great question because in my practice, I see adults. Um, but I worked in the school system forever. So I've worked with a lot of students. In a child, it's incredibly noticeable because for 8 hours a day, you have to sit still in a desk, perfectly still, and listen to someone talk, which is an ADHD person's nightmare. I mean, a nightmare. That's the worst scenario ever. And so they're going to be fidgeting, they're going to be like shifting in their chair. Well, even if you come to my practice, I will shift in my chair because I have ADHD. I will shift in my chair every 5 to 10 minutes. If you are near me in church, I'll drive you crazy. I will lean forward. I will lean back. I will put my arm up. I will put my arm. The people that can sit perfectly still for long periods of time fascinate me. Like I cannot do that. But I'm not out of control with it. If I'm a child, they're, they're clumsy. They're overreactive. They're just, and so, and in a kid, if a kid is emotionally dysregulated, the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. Their problem solving skills are very low. So they may lash out. You hate me. You just don't love me. And they're afraid of rejection. It just comes out. They have no filter. With adults, there's more of a filter. They're thinking the same thing. Their brain is going just as fast as that kid's brain, but they've learned, okay, I can't behave that way just yet. I would venture to say there's so many people out there who are unfortunately addicted to drugs because they've tried, their brain is going so fast that when they've done those illicit drugs, it calms their brain because they've not been diagnosed as such. And it's like for that period of time, they get this like, oh my gosh, my brain just calms down. And it has nothing to do with like them being a bad person or anything. They're just trying to calm their brain. So with adults, I usually tell them, if I made a kid out of your brain, what would that kid look like? And that's usually how adults are like, oh, okay. Because I'm not acting like a child with ADHD, but my brain is going just as fast. You just learn how to manage it better. And kids are more very expressive with it. Whereas adults, it's a lot internal.
Would you say that's probably one of the biggest differences between children and adults, how they express it?
Yes. Yeah, it's the same thing, but it will come out differently. I gave you the example of the kid running to the line, and bowling over those kids. Get inside of a car with somebody with ADHD and tell me it's not fairly similar. We're not crashing into other cars, but it's not. We're also trying to get to where we're going quickly, and so there's that. I told you the kids shifting around in their seat. If you were sitting near me, I'm not going to be like jerky and brash about it, but I will move a lot. I will be moving a lot. Kids will just interrupt with no regard, as opposed to an adult will interrupt and be, oh, I'm sorry. My fault, my fault, my fault. And a kid doesn't know to do that. An adult with ADHD will sit there being like, are they judging me? Did they think about that? Is they da, 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 da? And but they never say it. They're just, and they're not listening to you at that point. You can see it. When I have ADHD clients, it's hilarious. Like because I know the symptoms, I know when to just stop talking because I can see that look in their eyes. Like, all right, lost their attention's gone now. Like, but a kid is not just going to sit there and think. They're going to, why do you hate me? Why don't you like blah, blah? Like, whereas an adult, it's like it's all taking place in their
So I
head.
kind of have a follow-up
Yeah.
question. So And this is kind of something that happens a lot. So with relationships and with teenagers, what would you say is probably one of the biggest characteristics and signs in a relationship with someone that does have ADHD? Do they overthink a lot, or is it like, um, how would you represent that?
Yeah, I usually say, I explained this to a parent one time who had a teenage son who had ADHD. Um, I said, imagine, I mean, you're in a car going at 110 miles an hour. So if you were sitting in a car going 110 miles an hour, what are all the things that are going on in your mind? Like you're nervous, you're scared, you're trying to read road signs, but they're going by so fast and you're trying to comprehend things. Okay, so imagine that, but your problem solving skills are very low and your hormones are raging like crazy. I mean, it's not a great cocktail happening inside of the ADHD teenage brain right there. And so as a parent, I would say what happens a lot of times is we criticize the symptoms because they are annoying. I have all of the symptoms. They're annoying. They're annoying for me. So I know they're annoying for other people. And so parents will do stuff like you're lazy, but their kid will play video games for 5 hours without moving. And it's like, well, no, that's not it. Um, they'll call them lazy. They'll say, you're so forgetful. And they'll just attack the symptoms. Whenever that kid is like, I don't mean to forget. Do you think I want to get yelled at? Do you think I want this to happen? Like, or do you think I like this feeling? But parents don't usually think that through because it's annoying. These characteristics are annoying. And so I would say, like, as you see these in your teenager, and I know you said, like, how does it present as a teenager? But you can take all these things that I've said as a kid and then compound it and then throw dating in the mix. It's a bad, like, it's just a lot. It's so much happening all at once. It's a whirlwind. And so for parents, I would say be your kid's peace. That's what, because for a teenager with ADHD, they're going to be all over the place. I want to do this. 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 Oh my gosh, you change your mind so much. Blah, 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 blah. Just sit down and talk to them. Who cares if they change? That's the beautiful part about being a kid. You don't, like, yeah, I mean, at our age, like, you don't get to change your mind a whole lot about big things. They do. And so, but they're going to be all over the place. But it's like, I would like look at them and know your teenager and say, is this malicious or is this something else? If it's not malicious, treat it like it's something else. Don't keep treating it like they're doing it on purpose. If they're arguing with you, like, do you think I want to be late? Do you think I liked it? Like, I didn't mean to. That's what they'll say a lot of time. I didn't mean to. Well, somebody that's malicious means to.
So I
Like,
kind of want to go back to
yeah.
something you said real quick. So you said when parents, you talked about them attacking more of the symptoms, being more critical towards that. What advice would you give to parents instead of, necessarily not attacking those symptoms? What would you say?
Um, I would say to like clock those symptoms, like write them down, like recognize them in your kid. What's the common things that they're doing? And then build routines and build things around that. So, one thing that I give parents is so a kid, they'll say, the reward system is kind of broke in a teenager's brain, an ADHD kid's brain. So people with ADHD will say things like, I wait till the last minute, but I get it done 100. They get it done every single time and they do, and they're good at it. And so so they'll say things like, I just procrastinate. I procrastinate everything, but they don't change it. And it's like, yeah, because ADHD people are motivated by interest, novelty, challenge, and urgency. So why do you procrastinate? Because you need that adrenaline rush to kick in, and then you knock it out. And that urgency is different for everybody. So I would just tell parents to learn your kids' symptoms and then work with them rather than, because here's the thing. If the car is going 110 miles an hour in the right direction, it's a superpower. If you are highly emotionally sensitive in the right direction, it's a superpower. If you can hold multiple trains of thought all at once, but they're in the right direction, it's a superpower. Like it's all of these things tend to go negative because people haven't learned how to shift them into a positive direction. And I would say that's where parents or therapy comes in.
That's a good point take to for parents. That's an interesting way there. So, what therapeutic approaches have you found most effective working with clients who have ADHD?
Um, I usually do like the acceptance, like self-compassion, meaning accept that that's your symptoms. It's not just your thoughts, like it's not your thoughts aren't driving your behaviors. Like this is like your brain, your thoughts are going 100 miles an hour. And so accept your symptoms. I usually have to challenge a lot of my ADHD clients with excusing their symptoms. Like, so when they're in relationships, they'll talk over their partner, or they'll be emotionally dysregulated and lose their minds and spiral out of control. And they'll be like, "But I have ADHD, so it's okay." And I'm like, "No, that's not how that works. Like, you can't use it like an excuse." I tell them to accept it, and then let's start to develop techniques and coping skills based on your symptoms, uh, that is simple, external, meaning you can see it. It's easy to identify. That's usually the techniques that I use in my practice.
How can counseling help individuals with ADHD move from their self-criticism to self-understanding and their self-compassion?
I think in talking through it and hearing someone say, "I understand that you didn't mean to, that you're not rude." They've heard they're rude and annoying their whole life, and that they're lazy, and to hear somebody else go, "Yeah, you're not lazy. You're just you're not interested. It's not challenging. There's not, you got to somehow find, you got to turn it into a game." Like a lot of times it's like truly like if it's so crazy with a kid with ADHD and adults the same. Like for example, if you wanted a kid to put the laundry away, you could be like, "I'll race you. Who do you think can fold the most towels?" I'm telling you, if you got an ADHD kid, they will burn through that laundry trying to beat you. If you turn it into a game, they're down. You got to turn it all into a game. But just like do this and you get a reward, they're like, "No, that's not enough. That's just not that's not enough." And so I just say like moving people from like you're not a bad person, you're not a lazy person, you're not a rude person, you're not a dismissive person. Your brain is just going so fast, and teaching them that and helping them understand that I think moves into self-compassion.
I want to jump in here just a minute because I've heard you make a statement many times that I think is worth its weight in gold. You are not broken.
Yes.
And hearing those words, I think are so valuable, and kind of made me think about what you were saying, moving from that self-criticism to self-understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely believe that. And I say I do. Yeah, I use that because I want people to know that. Because you have to work with what you have. And what you have, life has made you that. Like, your circumstances and your experiences have made you who you are, and we work with that. Yeah.
What role do you like routine, like structure and copy and strategies play into managing ADHD? And then how do you help clients kind of develop that realistically? Because obviously it's probably hard to understand at first.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of, I'm very big on like one-liners, like very simple comments, like very simple, because when your brain's going a million miles an hour, to remember a whole lot of things is going to be nearly impossible. So you bullet points. Um, so we'll remember very simple things throughout the day, or I'll tell whatever they're giving me, I'll give them usually simple one-liners to remember. And then things need to be more external. So, for example, I would tell you for an ADHD person, what is going to be on their mind is what they can see. So, if I need to remember something for the next day, you need to write a list and you need to make it visible. Not in the notes in your phone. That's not visible. Like they got to be in front. And so if they're going grocery shopping and they come back and it's like, oh, I always throw out the healthy. I always forget that I have lettuce and blah blah blah. Like it's because we'll put ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, milk, all these things that you're going to use constantly. We make those visible. And then in the drawers that you can't see, you'll put all these like side things. If you have ADHD, you should not do that. You should put your ketchup and your mustard and your mayonnaise in the drawers because you're going to use those. That's going to be, as you're making it, it's going to come to your mind. The other stuff that you usually end up throwing out, that should be visible so that you can see what you have. You need to make everything visible. At my house, everything I hate that it looks cluttered sometimes because of this, but I also know that if I can't see it, or my son, if he can't see it, then it's gone. And so you'll forget you have a box of Legos if you can't see it. Like, oh, like, you'll forget what food you have unless, like, I won't buy like, I have a bookshelf as a pantry so that I can see everything that I have at all times. Like, because if I can't see it, I will not be thinking about it. It will not be on my phone. If I know that I need to text somebody or remember to check in on somebody, I'm going to write it on a dry erase board. I'm going to have it posted publicly. These interviews that we do on Wednesday is on my refrigerator. The second I got them on my refrigerator, or else I won't remember. Like it won't have, not because I don't care, just because again, my brain is moving at such a pace that unless it's visible and like around me, I just I won't think to do it. So that's one of the big ones that I tell people.
I say this jokingly. Have we decided if we're going to diagnose Donald yet or not? I'm kidding.
We may
I'm
save
just
that for a
kidding.
later episode. That'll be our hour long
I have a huge
analysis.
smile.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Amazon list. I'm
Yeah.
just kidding. So um, for individuals with ADHD, who feel overwhelmed or discouraged, what message of hope would you want them to hear?
What what Donald brought up, that you're not broken, that all of the things that you're struggling with, almost all of them have a positive side. And you just have to learn how to bring that positive side out. Um, and that just takes time. It just takes time to learn. I think of like all the things. Like I have one client who before we were working on things, and they said every time someone calls me, I get so excited to talk to them that I just start talking, and then I realize we're 10 minutes into the conversation and they called me. Like, and I've not heard a word that they've said. Now, that person is actually so excited that they called, which is super loving. but that doesn't come across as super, loving. So we come up with something that said all of those people that call them that they get excited, their name now in their phone says you first. And then it's like that person's name. So that when that person calls them and they're like, oh, who's that? It says you first, you know, Donald, you first, Brock. And they're like, hello. And they know immediately, let them talk. They called you, they go first. And so they care about that person and all of these things like you really like you that's why you're talking so much to that person. That's why you're so interested in that person. That's why those are good things. And so I would tell somebody you're not broken. It's just got to be shifted in the right directions.
So I kind of have two follow-up questions. It's kind of two parts. So I kind of want to get your opinion. Like, what percentage wise do you think of adults and children have ADHD? That's my first part.
Yeah, I think it's a lot, and this is why. Um, it's one of the few disorders that you can develop, like that you can have the building blocks of it, but not present itself. And then over time, like they come together, and then you have ADHD. And a lot of the way our society is structured now, tap it very much pushes us in that direction because such quick dopamine hits and such quick the fast pace of life. Life's not as slow. Um, but I always tell people though, I think so. I think a lot of us, I think a lot. And I think it's always been around. It was just manifesting in different ways in like the generation before us. Yeah.
So with my second part, do you think um do you think more so adults or diagnosed with it later in life, or do you think it's come to the point where it's more knowledgeable, people know more about it, so kids are getting treated with it early on?
I That's a great question. I think that kids are overdiagnosed with it and adults are underdiagnosed with it. Um, I think that kids, I'm thinking of the examples that I saw in the school system, and there were a lot of kids who just were kids and they would get labeled with ADHD. But when you see a child with true ADHD next to this other kid, you're like, I mean, it's undeniable. Like, it's just undeniable. Like again, I always use the kid in line. A kid with ADHD is going to bowl people over. Like it's just going to go. Whereas a hyper kid may just skip over to the line, or just something. But and kids have a hard time focusing and different things like that. So I think a lot of times kids are overdiagnosed with it, and I think adults are underdiagnosed. And I think adults are underdiagnosed because if we are not acting like a child with it, we think we don't have it. And that's why I always say if I took your brain and made a kid and then put that kid in a classroom, what would it act like? And people are like, oh my gosh, he'd be all over that. I'm like, yeah, okay, like there you go. So I would say it's overdiagnosed in kids and underdiagnosed in adults.
Alrighty. I'll hand it back over to Dr. Reed.
Okay, so our time is gone, but what an interesting conversation. And if you're listening online, I hope at some point you had that aha moment that somebody said something that you recognized. When we replace shame with understanding and isolation with connection, we create a space where we just don't manage ADHD, but we create a space where people are able to live fully and purposely with it. We hope you enjoyed the webinar. Thank you to Brock and Mr. Therapist, and we will see you next month. Have a great week.